Most of you guys don't need me to tell you about how massive amounts of art from all over the internet have been stolen to develop generative AIs which now replace real artists' jobs, nor do I need to tell you about how every major social media platform is working on their own tools to steal your art and make money off of it. So today, let me talk about what you can do to prevent them from doing this and how to actively poison these AIs. That's right, we can fight back, so let me tell you how. First of all, I think most artists have already looked into this, but just in case you haven't, why should you protect your art against AI? Well, basically, huge amounts of art and images were scraped off of the internet, compiled into training data, which then went to companies to be trained on by AI programs. Essentially, the art that was and is being used as training data was taken without consent or compensation to train a program to replace the very people the art was taken from. Now, with some AIs, it is possible to type in a specific artist name as a prompt and generate an artwork in their art style, which could potentially harm their commissions, print sales, and their reputation, since people might recognize their art style without knowing at a glance that the generated art was not made by them. With Meta and Twitter announcing that they will be training generative AIs on pictures posted on their websites, the likelihood of your art being included in the training data is increased, if it wasn't already included in previous models. Even if you don't think your art is quote-unquote good enough to be trained on, the more people use these programs, the more harm it can do, and the more companies will have to rethink their actions. So let me actually tell you about said programs. The two programs I'm talking about are Glaze and Nightshade, which are both being developed by the same people. The team behind these programs is made up of computer science professors and PhD students from the University of Chicago, and their goal is to make sure human artists can have more control over how their work is used. They put it into words really well on their website, so I will just quote that. Art is inspired by and an expression of our experiences, emotions, pain, and trauma. It connects us and defines much of what it means to be human. Our goal is to help ensure that human creativity continues to thrive by providing the technological tools that enable all human creatives to protect their artistic creations from unwanted AI training and AI mimicry. The team also states on their website that they are not interested in profit, which is why both programs are completely free to use. So what Glaze does is it essentially puts a layer of information on top of your artwork that will make it harder for AI to recognize your art style. For example, my art style looks like this, but once it's glazed, the AI will confuse it for this. Or maybe you do portraits in pencil, but if you glaze it, the AI will see it as cel-shaded digital art. What makes it great is that if someone now asks the AI to generate art in my art style, they will instead get something like this. Obviously, that's not exactly how it works, but it is a funny thought. The cool thing about Glaze is that it still works even if your glazed artwork is screenshotted, edited, or compressed. However, you still want to do any editing, watermarks, and cropping before glazing, because it will be the most effective that way. So if you plan to post several crops of your artwork on Instagram, for example, it would be best to glaze every crop individually. Now let me show you how I glaze my own art so you can get familiar with the process. So in order to download Glaze, you want to go to the website I linked in the description, go to downloads, download Glaze. There's going to be some notes on the current releases. You should read through these because there's some important things that you need to know to get this working. You should also definitely read through the user's guide, since you can't really run this on like every device. There's a list of Windows GPUs, for example, that you can check to see if your GPU is included. But yeah, on the downloads page, you can scroll all the way to the bottom, and there you will find the download for different devices. If you don't have a PC or an older GPU, then there is another option for you, and that is Webglaze, which you can also find on the website. I will also link it below. Webglaze is invite only at this moment, so you will have to read through the instructions on how to get an account, but once you did that, you will be able to glaze your art without needing to run it on a PC. So let me demonstrate how this works. First of all, obviously you gotta select an artwork, so just go to the folder your artwork saved and then select it and open. You can also select multiple at the same time. Then you want to pick your intensity. The higher you set it, the more protected your art will be, but it will also show up more on the rendered result. Render quality is kind of similar. More render quality will give you a more protected result, but it will take longer. I'm just gonna go with the second highest one here. And then you select where you want to save it. I'm just gonna select the same folder that the artwork is also in right now. And then you run it. And then as you'll see, it'll tell you analyzing images, 3 minutes per image. And here you can see approximately how long it will take. I'm not sure why it's switching around between numbers for me, but oh well, happens. And after 5 billion years of waiting, depending on your GPU, it will tell you it succeeded and save the image in your output folder. Alright, so this is the original image and this is the glazed version, so let's look at them. So this is the original image, and this is the glazed version. I would say from far away you definitely can't see, but I can see a couple of things on my big screen, so I will just zoom in. And as you can tell, there are some artifacts here. Otherwise, I think the difference is not too bad, especially because it's a rendered artwork, so you're not going to see that big of a difference. It's just gonna add this texture to everything, forcing you guys to look at this gun because I spent a lot of time rendering it. Okay, now let's also glaze an image that has a lot less rendering to see how bad the artifacts are. This is the glazed sheet and this is the unglazed sheet. I'm just gonna keep switching them on and off for a moment. It is definitely more noticeable, but also I have to say it's not that bad, considering that these are mostly flat colors. I definitely think that this is usable for social media. The main downside to this is, as you already saw, that glazing your artworks will leave behind these artifacts in your drawings, which can be a bit off-putting. I found that glaze looks great on painterly art with a detailed background. It even looks like a cool texture on some, but it is a bit crunchy on anything with flat colors. In the newest version they fixed it up a little bit, but it's still not ideal. Though, to be honest, social media already destroys the quality of artworks anyway, so I'd rather have people look at a slightly more scuffed version of my art that AI can't rip off than a more clean version that anyone is free to steal. Plus, you can always adjust the settings and glaze it again, because every time you glaze there will be different results. If there's an annoying artifact right on the face, for example, I just delete that version and glaze it again. But honestly, I think most people who look at your art won't care that much, and just to prove my point, did you notice that the thumbnail for this very video is glazed? If you did, it definitely wasn't bad enough to stop you from clicking on it. Now for the second program, Nightshade, aka our tool to poison the AI. Nightshade essentially does a similar thing to Glaze, but instead of protecting your style, it tells the AI that you drew something completely different from what you actually drew. So if you drew an anime character, the AI might think you drew a potted plant. The way this works is when you put your drawing into Nightshade, it scans it for information and decides a tag it thinks is fitting for the artwork, like anime. If the tag doesn't really fit, you can also change it, but it's important to keep it generalized. Essentially, Nightshade knows what's in your drawing, but to other AIs it will make it look like it's something entirely different. The way this becomes effective is if many people do this, since the more the AI is being fed anime characters and sees them as potted plants due to Nightshade, the more likely it is the AI will learn anime characters actually look like this. Just like Glaze, Nightshade still works on screenshotted, cropped, and edited artworks as well. But if you plan to add watermarks and post different crops, it's going to be the most effective if you Nightshade each crop individually and do any editing beforehand. So to download Nightshade, it is essentially the same process as for Glaze. You want to click on Nightshade and then download Nightshade. Again, you should read through the notes because sometimes there's important stuff in there and it might not run on every device, but the download links are here. As of right now, there is sadly no way to use Nightshade without a PC, so you will have to wait for Webglaze to release with its Nightshade add-on. So once you have Nightshade successfully downloaded, it will look like this. And just like with Nightshade, first thing you want to do is obviously select an image. I'm gonna select the unglazed version of the image first to show you what it looks like with and without Nightshade, and then we will put Nightshade on top of Glaze. Alright, let's open this, and it should give us a tag. So I already explained how the tags work. For this one, I am going to put the tag anime. The intensity is essentially the same thing like with Nightshade. The higher you put it, the more artifact there's gonna be on the artwork, but it's also gonna be more poisonous for the AI. And render quality, also the same thing like with Glaze. The longer time it takes for it to render, the higher the poison is going to be, and the more it's going to harm whatever AI is training on this. For this demonstration, because I don't want to wait too long, I will just pick the lowest one. And honestly, for Nightshade, you don't necessarily need to pick the higher ones. It's not going to protect your artwork, it's just going to harm the AI. And then you select an output folder. And last but not least, you run it, and now we wait again. And once it is completed, it will tell you that it's saved in the output folder, and also that it added this text file, which has some instructions for posting the image. So let's check that out. Okay, so this is the original, this is the Glaze version, and this is the Nightshaded version. And here's the text file. This text file is mainly only helpful if you nightshade multiple images at once, because it might give you different tags for each image. But if you do single images only, then you don't really need to care about this much. So yeah, let's look at the result. Okay, so this is the normal version, and this is the nightshaded version. For this one, I can see even less of a difference than for the normal versus glazed version. So you can see some artifacts around the hat area, for example, but honestly it's not that noticeable. And let's also look at the character sheet as well. So this is the nightshaded version, and this is the non-nightshaded version. Again, the difference is kind of hard to see, but you can see it in some places, like right here for example. But overall, it is a lot more low-key. I have also used Nightshade and Glaze together on some artworks, but that tends to honestly be really crunchy, like the artifacts here are like very visible. So yeah, stay tuned for some tips on how to use both of these together effectively. Now some of you might be asking which one of the two you should rather use, because maybe you don't have the space on your laptop, or maybe you don't like the hassle that using both programs brings. If you're on mobile only, the answer is quite simple, because you can only use Webglaze at the making of this video. However, there is also supposed to be an add-on for Nightshade with Webglaze, like I mentioned earlier. Now for people who have a PC, on the Glaze website, they say that you should use Glaze on every artwork to prevent your style from being mimicked, while Nightshade is entirely optional. They are working on releasing a combined version, which will hopefully look a little bit less crispy than when I use them together currently. If you can, using both is obviously gonna be the best for protecting your art while also harming the models being trained on it. But as of right now, most of the time Glaze and Nightshade together look a bit too crunchy on my artworks personally. If you want to use both, the team recommends using Nightshade first and then Glaze, so Glaze has the stronger effect. Also, depending on when you're watching this, the combined version might already be out, and obviously the team is actively working on improving these tools, so hopefully it will be easier to use Glaze and Nightshade together in the future. For more information on both programs, you should check out their website and YouTube channel, which I linked in the description. You can also follow their Twitter for updates on the development and laws regarding the situation. There is one big mistake you can make after using Glaze and or Nightshade, and that is mentioning that you use them when you post. I think with Glaze it doesn't matter as much, because if you write that you glazed it and your artwork gets excluded from the training data, that still protects your art style. But with Nightshade, we want the artwork to be fed to the AI to poison it, so you should not mention which artworks are nightshaded, especially not under the artwork itself. And I guess for Glaze the point can be made that if you mention it has been glazed, it can also be used to train programs to unglaze artworks, so just be mindful. Just like with big issues like climate change, unethical AI art is not something we can completely stop with individualized actions. What we need are laws that prevent companies from chasing profit at the expense of everyone else. There are already people trying to unglaze artworks, and honestly, we shouldn't have to use these programs in the first place. Our consent and copyright should be respected and protected. We need laws that protect artists, including writers, musicians, voice actors, photographers, and other creatives from companies trying to increase their profit margins. Training on people's data without their consent or forcing consent on social media should be illegal. The final solution will have to be political action. And here's the finished artwork you watched me draw in the background. This is a bit of a different video than usual, so I'm not sure how people are gonna like it, but I feel like it's important for people to know about and use these programs. If you enjoyed watching me draw, you're in luck because I draw a lot more on my channel. Here's a video where I actually designed the OC from the artwork you watched me draw in this video. You can also follow me on Instagram if you want to see more of my art. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. Special thanks to my patrons, you guys are awesome. That's it for today. Will out.